So it's protection for your valuation, protection for the current investors that you have in order to ensure that you are not having down rounds. So it's a good thing that you continue growing as well as raising your valuation. And of course, the other huge part of your spending is based on US dollars, either the needed hardware or either the cloud, all these things, it's paid on US dollars. Accordingly, having an income with the foreign currency is very important to sustain the business and make it somehow more attractive and to de-risk this for the investors. So this is a very important thing as well, yeah.
Amazing. So talk to me about your investors. Have you raised? How much have you raised? Over what period does that look like?
Okay. So actually we raised $2 million US. Mainly we have a huge number of investors, actually African investors, global investors, some investors from Asia, from Egypt, from North Africa, South Africa. So we have a huge number of investors, mainly VCs. Yep. So this is our investors, yeah.
Awesome. And what's your relationship like with your investors?
Okay. Of course, the relation between a founder and the investor, it's very, very important. So the role of the investor, it will support you either with connections, either with giving you the exposure needed to capture those opportunities. So for example, when we needed to expand to Saudi, I had the opportunity to attend one of the biggest conferences there. Actually, it was sponsored by one of our investors. So this is the relation that I have with our investors. And on the other hand, to keep, let's say, a good relation with your investors, of course, they need to be engaged, maximum engagement. Having regular updates about the business, the performance, all this kind of things, in order to ensure that it's a long-term relation. So, for example, we raised, as well as some of the investors reinvested or did a follow-on investment, which is, this couldn't be done if we didn't do the homework, which is sending the regular updates. Let's say, integrating or having the investors not only communicating the numbers, but communicating the numbers, the culture, what's the company is doing in attending different events, what's your vision, what's the partnerships that have been doing in the past couple of months. All this, let's say, dynamics, it needs to be communicated to the investors. It's not only about the numbers, but yet the culture that you are building in the company, who's building the company, all this kind of things, which is some let's say, startups will send only, I did this number and that number of acquired customers and that's it. So no, it's not about not just numbers, but yet it's about the story. Yeah. So you need to communicate the story even for your investors in order to ensure that you are getting their, let's say, interest. For example, some of the investors have over 100 portfolio companies. Yeah. How you stand out within those couple of companies. So it's not only about bringing the investor, but keeping you on top of mind of the investor as Absolutely. Well.
And as a key part of your growth, being able to bring those investors on board to go into new markets and to be able to tap into their networks so that they can open those for you?
Of course, that's very important to have the investors that they will give you access to market. So as mentioned, we have multiple African investors. So this is one of the key things that we were keen from the early beginnings, as we see our solutions not only for Egypt, it's mainly for all the emerging markets, especially Africa. So this is why we try to have investors from multiple countries to have access to those markets once we expand, as well as, of course, the insights, the partnerships that we can have from the connections of the investors at those markets. So this is one of the key things that we focused on. And of course, the other part, which is having investors, global investors, especially from US, it's very helpful, especially with the, let's say, the large rounds. So this is the thing, that if you need to go Series A and beyond, you need access to capital. And of course, US is the major player in this space. So accordingly, we have investors from the US as well in order to secure, let's say, our future raising.
Yeah. And tell me, where are you at in your call it profitability journey? Are you at
Yeah.
break even? Have you beyond that?
Okay. So currently it is a break-even point. So this is, let's say, on a company level.
Yeah.
So this is the where we stand. We are heading to profitability. So this is the thing that yani, we changed the direction actually. At the beginning, of course, it was growing, acquiring customers, all of this, let's say, KPIs that we followed. But yet currently, we are moving more into building a more sustainable business rather than being dependent on the investments. But yet, investments is currently not for, let's say, the sustainability of the business rather than accelerating growth. So this is what we're trying to do. Currently, our break even, we are trying to go to the profitability, or we will go for the profitability within the upcoming 6 months, and then afterwards, of course, if we are raising for market expansion or let's say having a new business line, not for let's say the continuity of the business. Yeah.
So one of the key things that I remember for our just introductory conversation was that you're at 150 people already.
Yeah.
And you've raised $2 million. The numbers there don't quite add up. There's obviously something you've done behind the scenes to make that work and get to break even.
Yes.
How have you done that?
So actually it is, let's say, the culture and the selection criteria that we had from the early beginnings, which is having the right caliber, even if he don't have the enough expertise or experience. So rather than having, for example, someone with 10 years of experience, having like X salary, you can have someone with, let's say, decent experience, like 2 years, but a very good caliber with like half or even quarter this salary. And you invest somehow in those people to get them more advanced and to give you the results that you want. So this is mainly what we focused on, which is having the right talents and giving them the opportunity, the education. And the good thing about this, you will be surprised by the stickiness as well as the retention of those people in the company, as you are, let's say, give them the opportunity, you give them the knowledge. They are currently in a whole new level in their experience and their capabilities. So there will be loyal for the company. So we are not only bringing people to, let's say, work in the company, but yet we invest in the people as well in order to get them up to the level of the competition and much better as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And on the point of your team and the talent around you, are you a single founder? Is there people around you?
Okay, so actually we are 4 co-founders. So this is the important part as well. I don't see that a company with a single founder is a good idea, to be honest. So having multiple founders, of course, capitalizing on our expertise. Mainly all of us are coming from different backgrounds with 10 years plus experience in big names, companies at different sectors, mainly multinationals. So we have different experience, different connections. So this has, of course, helped us in creating what we build. And on the other hand, of course, distributing the, let's say, the work between, for example, I'm attending this event, the operations still operating in Egypt and Saudi, whatsoever, as well as on the other hand, of course, there is, let's say, hard times at any startup. If you have someone who's, let's say, standing, and let's say, if you are down, he's supporting you, it's very, very important. So I see that the idea of having a single founder not only is a problematic as you having all the responsibilities, but yet at sometimes let's say the emotional support between the founders is what keeps things going. Yeah.
And talk to me about the skill sets that each of you brings to the table, and why you selected to work with your co-founders.
Yes, yeah. So let's say the skill sets, which is mainly coming from our experience at different corporates. So corporates, I see it's a very good experience that, for example, the quality of the anything you deliver, it needs to be with very high standards. So this was embedded in our DNA as a company from day one, in the branding, the website we delivered at the beginning, all the products that we deliver. All the people that saw the products, okay, it is a multinational company. So this was the feedback that we had in the early beginnings when even they don't know the company. So this is a thing. The other part, which is, as mentioned, which is being good with numbers, either financials, either what KPIs to look at. Of course, it took years. Took years of learning in corporates to learn so. From my experience, like 6 or 8 years at least to be good at those things. So we skipped, let's say, the learning phase during our corporate experience. For myself, it's 12 years. The others are 10 years plus. So it's a huge number of years, as well as, of course, the management style, to manage the team, to communicate with a partner or in a project, or to manage a project, all this kind of things. It is a huge and important set of skills that you acquire through your experience in the corporate, and you need to ensure that you are helping the company or the startup with those set of skills in order to get it in a faster pace than let's say, the others. Yeah.
So let's just play a bit of a mental game. You've had 12 years of corporate experience and then gone into the startup world.
Yeah.
What do you think would have been like if you did it the other way around? And you started a business straight out of university and then started looking at the corporate world afterwards?
To be honest, I think it will not fly. It would most probably it would fail. I respect a lot my experience, my learning that I had through the 12 years.
Yeah.
Of course, it added a lot to my personality, added a lot to my, let's say, understanding of the business. Of course, it will be so hard if coming out of the university and starting your own business. It's super. From my experience, it's super wrong. At least you need 2 to 3 years at a company or a startup somehow to gain some experience, even the market, not only about, let's say, the set of skills, and then build your own thing. Yeah. So this is important as well.
And then we've got time for one last question. I'll keep it very short before we hand back over. But do you think you can go back to working in a corporate and back to the corporate lifestyle?
Actually, maybe yes. I don't see it as a bad place at all. So it can be done, of course, if managing a company that's operating different, let's say, countries, different continents, having a C-level position, of course, it will be good. Yeah, based on let's say, after an exit, what's the direction? For me, it will be either, for example, going into the VC space or going back to, let's say, big corporates. It can be done. It's not a no-go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brett. So let's see if we do have some questions from the floor, but such a great conversation. Do we have any questions for the gentleman on stage? No questions. I do have a quick one for you, though, Ahmed. You mentioned the 4 founders. I would love to know handling of, I don't want to say conflict, but we all have different personalities.
Yes.
So handling those instances in, the different personalities and disagreements even.
Yeah, so it's very important. Actually, I'm the quiet guy. So the other people, maybe they are more crazier than me, which is you need in the, let's say, a team, someone who's quiet and someone who's somehow more into action, and especially people, sales and operations, they need to do so. But let's say the compatibility and let's say the understanding between the founders is very, very important to have, as well as the decision, any major decision in the company. It's about engaging the team and having the input and the insights from all the team, rather than someone, even CEO. That's not that direction. Of course, it's a collective decision. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brett, any last words from you before we say goodbye on the stage?
No, I'm just excited to come visit you in Egypt and see where the business is whenever I manage to get out there.
I will be waiting for you. But yeah,
that'll be
in
good.
the summer it will be better. Yeah. Good.
Fantastic. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, gentlemen. It was great having you on stage. A round of applause, CEO, the Series A stage. It was a nice fireside chat we just had there now. And we're going to move on to our next topic for this afternoon as we continue our conversation with the AfricArena. We're talking tech. We're talking about how we can pick each other's brains and see how we can progress and move on the African continent in the space of tech. So next up, we have a conversation around the latest stage funding Series B and over, and the liberalization of IPO and M&A. We're going to have 4 fantastic speakers joining us. The likes of Abi Ajayi, Frida, and also Simon and Anthony, who are going to be joining us on stage to have this conversation. We'll give it a couple of seconds, and then we'll welcome them on stage. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on to our next conversation, later stage funding. And Anthony is going to be leading this conversation for us this afternoon. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I know we're coming to the end of what's been a fantastic 2 days at AfricArena, but also extension from the weekend with the VC Young Conference as well. So thank you to Christoph and all the team for the fantastic week of activities and connections that have happened. Reflecting on the last couple of days and the conversation we had, we're often talking about early stage fundraising, mobilizing the early stage ideation through to seed to series funding. But a conversation that's also been happening over the last week or so is around that later stage funding and exits, particularly looking at the viability of IPOs as an exit route. And the panel I have with me today, which has been convened around a series of conversations we've been having with the Department of Trade, the UK government, is around exits, their viability within the context of Africa with relation to UK markets. On the weekend, we were at the VC Young Conference, and one of the things, a question we asked to the investors that were in the room was, what does an exit mean for you? And a couple of the statements we got were life or death. It means the progression of our companies, significant monetary return, a reality check, validation of the African VC thesis, light at the end of the tunnel, and lots of cash. So it was clearly something that is definitively quite important. The question is, what type of exits are viable within the ecosystem? And today on our panel, I'm going to let each member introduce themselves. We have what I'm calling the platform, the enabler, and the funder, who are this value chain for getting us to exits, particularly in the context of an IPO. But if I could ask from my right to left, quick introduction to yourself, organization, and your relation to the Africa tech ecosystem. Simon.
Yeah, perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. A pleasure to be here. So Simon Olsen, I'm a partner from Deloitte in London, and I lead our Africa IPO team. It's a team of about 30 people spread across the African continent and here, and we worked on over 25 IPOs of African businesses, both onto local exchanges, onto London, and onto some of the other international ones. So a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Frida.
Hi, it's lovely to meet you all. My name is Frida Singoma. I am a fund manager at Octopus Investments. They're based in London. They're the biggest VC managers in the UK, one of the most active in Europe. My interest in Africa, I'm an African, and so I'm spreading and evangelizing how important investing in Africa is. I used to run an African equity portfolio in South Africa for Investec from 2008. And I'm here sort of hopefully waving the flag for more UK investments in Africa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abi Ajayi. I'm responsible for primary markets at the London Stock Exchange for Middle East and Africa. I like that I was introduced as the platform, and truly we are a platform that converges 3 C's, capital for users and providers, so users like yourself, conversations, important conversations around the ecosystem on what it means to raise capital and how to use that capital, and then more importantly, the C for the communities like yourself. Africa being a critical part, and Africa Tech being a critical part of those communities, ensuring that we continue to help to shape the conversations around policy, ensuring that businesses are not at any point in time prioritizing profits over people.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for joining us. I want to get out the next kind of 20, 25 minutes, and then some questions from yourselves. I think the 3 things is really understanding your roles as the enablers at this kind of exit stage and route, key considerations that are valuable to anybody in the room, whether a funder or a founder, even if an exit isn't a viable opportunity, how things within the exit and IPO route will be valuable for early stage people to consider and getting best practice for their business. And then finally, how do people actually engage with you guys on a tangible basis, whether it's an individual or as a collective? And I think really for me, kind of to kick us off, is what is your experience over the last couple of weeks engaging with different conversations with people? What is the general sentiment appetite right now for an IPO exit? I ask myself the question being a founder, like, why are we talking about IPOs as an exit route right now in the African tech ecosystem when we are struggling to raise capital at the earlier stage? So I guess it'll be a quick question to all 3 of you, kind of what is that general sentiment, or what are you seeing? And I guess that will lead on to talking about what we think of the longer term prospect in the market, which is really where we're playing. So I'll start with you, Simon.
Yeah, perfect. I think one of the things that struck me a lot over the last week or so, and actually has struck me over the last couple of years, is there are a lot of myths out there about IPO, and actually engaging with people and talking to people has helped start to dispel some of those myths. So things like, you need to be $1 billion plus to list in London. No, you don't. We have our AIM market, you can be 1/10 of that size. Things like, it's going to take me years, it's going to be hugely expensive. In reality, it doesn't have to be. There are ways to do it faster, and there are ways to do it more efficiently. The other thing that strikes me is there's a huge amount of tech business on the continent, and I've seen it as I've travelled around in recent months, I've seen it in the last week, that look good for the markets, and I think actually could find a very good home for themselves on the public markets, especially in today's world where private money can be a bit harder to get hold of.
Mm-hmm. And you've also been doing a series of masterclasses across the continent this year, introducing people in more depth to the IPO opportunity, is that correct?
That's correct. So we've done masterclasses in North, East, West and South. We've spoken to literally hundreds of businesses. So I'd like to think I have a good view on this topic. But look, there's a lot of interest there. And I think for a lot of business, actually, the capital markets could well be the right answer.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. And Frida, you've obviously got extensive investment background between the UK and Africa before your time with Octopus, but now as well with Octopus, and you're here for multiple meetings and engagements. So if we talk about it from the sentiment market, from a deal flow pipeline, where are you as a later stage funder looking at IPOs, engaging with businesses at what stage that's helping you define and understand what appetite there is for this growth stage capital and exit vehicle?
Yeah, so I run an AIM VCT. We basically invest in anything on AIM. I also co-run IHT portfolios. Again, it invests in AIM. I mean, there's massive appetite, I have to say.
Can I quickly... AIM.
AIM.
What is AIM and what is different to the stock exchange? Just as a quick one so our audience knows, because I'm always asking the question.
So AIM is considered the junior market on the London Stock Exchange. In fact, it's a growth market. So it's the platform for smaller companies to list, to get their footing on the London Stock Exchange as a listed company. Markets grow on AIM, so we usually get companies from less than sub 10 million market cap, some over $1 billion now if they've been on AIM a long time and grown over the years. It is the biggest growth market in Europe, the most active, and that's my playground. There's massive appetite at the moment. 2021, AIM market went up by about 33%. That's because the market for IPOs came back quite strongly during COVID. Before that, a lot of companies were going the private route. So we thought that was over and more companies would come to AIM. 2022 was quite good too. But then we had a dearth of IPOs in 2023. So it tailed off, obviously, once the geopolitical situation changed. But the pipeline is slow, but the demand is still there very strongly. I mean, we raised money last year. We raised money quickly this year. We closed it within 3.5 weeks. We're probably going to go out raising more money in a few months' time because there's still an appetite for people to invest in AIM. So as me and Abby were having a conversation earlier, is the more pipeline there is, the more money we can raise. So the pipeline literally determines how much money we can raise. So the demand is there. It's also worth noting that as much as AIM is a growth market, I know that the other VCT portfolios and a lot of the other AIM portfolios that we do run, about 30-40% is invested in tech, just to make that clear.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And Abby, London Stock Exchange, I think for a lot of people, that seems like a daunting, far away, very rare thing. Our businesses aren't ready. We're never going to be there at that scale in the African context. How are you engaging with early stage businesses in the ecosystem? And what is the message you're giving to them about engaging in the IPO process, or even getting to know yourselves at the exchange or other exchanges to think about it long term in the future? Okay. Not too long term, we hope.
So, I mean, I'd like to say first that we are a 300-year-old fintech and one that's constantly innovating. So, of course, there is that knowledge of where lots of businesses are at this point in time. And I think oftentimes the conversation is about what does good look like. And I'll be honest and upfront that the IPO perhaps is not for every company, but there are very good companies that have a significant opportunity to tread that path. What it gives you, apart from significant brand recognition, visibility, acquisition currency, institutionalization, the permanence of it that just allows you to be able to raise capital when and as when you do need it. One thing which I'll say this year with respect to London, even in spite of muted markets, we had 250 follow-on offerings on the exchange, raising £20 billion. So existing businesses that I've listed in have been able to want to continue to tap the market. I've been asked this question that, do I have to be 50, 60, 70 million pounds or 200 million pound valued company before I can come to London? The answer is no. I've listed companies this year, 20 million pound valuation, all the way through to close to £1 billion. So I do think that, once you start to think about where you are in terms of your growth cycle, particularly for late-stage VCs and even growth-stage VCs, for you to identify the companies that have the right metrics, are growing quickly, perhaps even capital-intensive, that could start to think about this path as a viable exit option for you. I'm happy to have a conversation. I have the conversations every day, in fact, because I'm a big Afrophile, as you can tell. So I'm always happy to have a conversation with companies and as well as potential, as well as VCs and funders in the ecosystem.
Fantastic. So I think so kind of getting that scene setting for where you guys come from, those perspectives. One of the things I'd ask, we've got some earlier stage founders here at AfricArena, we've got some growth stage founders as well. And a question that keeps coming up to me is being IPO ready and what that means. And actually, a lot of what I've been hearing in the last week or two around IPO readiness, where it's governance, the regulatory considerations, where you're domiciled and those considerations, is actually a lot of that is just simply good business practice, and that actually our fundamentals businesses should have in place early, regardless of whether they're IPOing. Now, Simon, with your role, you work with companies to help them get IPO ready and support them as do you guys as well. What are the top 3 considerations founders who might be in the room here should be considering that will be best placed them to be IPO ready, but fundamentally are best practice for being investment and growth ready?
Yeah, no, it's something we have a lot of conversations with businesses about, actually. And I think I'll start by saying IPO readiness means a lot of different things to different businesses. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. So you need to invest some time with people like me, people like Abby, others in the ecosystem to understand what it's going to mean for your business. But to give you 3 broad principles, the first thing I'd say is you should just start to think through as a business, do I want to have IPO as an option? And if so, where might I IPO, and what do I want my business to look like as I IPO? How am I going to sell my business to potential investors? And you do that reasonably early on, because that then starts to frame your strategy for your business and your business plan, because you want to be executing your business to maximize the IPO potential. The second thing I'd say is get your house in order. The step up to a public company is there in terms of things like governance and controls, in terms of what you're going to do for financial reporting. There is a step up of just the general environment of your business and what's demanded of it. So get your house in order. If you know that your books and records are a bit of a mess, if you know your finance function doesn't close its books right every month, if you know there's loads and loads of adjustments going through, try and get your house in order so that you're well run as a private business. And that will serve you well, not just in an IPO process, but any exit process. Because if the house isn't in order, that can cause you problems in any process. And then I think the third one is just spend, as I said, enough time with people who know what they're doing to understand what the IPO might look like for you. We're always very happy to run half-day or full-day workshops with businesses. We do it for free, just to take them through what an IPO might mean for them. And that will just start to help businesses get in their mind, what does it mean for me? What are the potentially more difficult things? What are the longer lead time things? What should I be thinking about now? Once you get to 15 to 18 months out, then you might actually want to be doing some quite detailed readiness work. Before then, it's more around getting the thinking and the planning in place.
Fantastic. And I know you've got some fantastic slides and resources you can find in your masterclasses that speak to this. Frida, then from the funder side, and I guess if I was a founder in the room who was starting to get into that growth stage, and I want to start engaging with later stage capital allocators like yourself, what are the signals for you? What are the metrics? What is the stage as a business in growth that you're looking at to say, okay, you would be potentially a consideration for an IPO from the perspective of Octopus?
The metrics that we look at obviously is their revenues and where they come from, the stability of their revenues, but we also look at the growth plan as well. The path to profitability is very important for us. But there are other markers that we look at, particularly with small businesses. It's usually founders, CEOs. And one thing, because we're very open to doing early looks, so we give companies our time, and we go through their business plan and then go back to them and the broker and let them know if they are IPO ready and whether the wider investment market would be interested. But what we always find with companies that skip that process is when you talk to the founders, CEOs, they weren't prepared to be an IPO CEO. Okay. And that's where a lot of companies come unstuck. So they're worried about the movement of their share price. They're wondering how, by incentivizing their staff through shares, now the staff are worried about the share price changes, so it demotivates them. They're not sure what it's like to be a public company, so, oh my God, I have to face you twice a year. Really? I have to tell you more about my business than I thought I would ever have to. So they struggle with the transparency issue. So there are all those little things that it's in the details sometimes that you should really think about, particularly as a founder, CEO. Prepare yourself, find a mentor, maybe take someone on the board that has public company experience. That would help, so that they can tell you what the process is like, but also help you through those times when things dip.
Mm-hmm. So So when we say that these companies come on and they're not IPO ready, is that they're not IPO viable, or it's simply they've just not got the best practice in place when actually they could be right for it, they're just not prepared well enough?
Yes, so we see a lot of companies, early looks, that just haven't put the best practices in place. That's one thing. But then you get some companies that are simply not IPO companies. You know, they're, again, the stability of the revenues, where the revenues are sourced from, their IP is not protected. You know, once you're a public company, you are under daily scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And you need to be prepared for that. So we don't want to have a situation where we're finding out through a profit warning or whatever it is, or a scandal, that actually their IP wasn't protected, or in fact, they're paying their staff, like less than minimum wage. So all those little details are important to us, and those are the things we scrutinize when we think, are you IPO ready?
Okay, fantastic. Abby, London Stock Exchange, obviously you're here to promote the exchange, promote listing. I think a lot of people in the ecosystem be like, as I said before, are we ready for IPOs? Should we be considering it? But the reality is not many companies are, as we talk, IPO viable, shouldn't be using it. There are multiple options for how you might exit a business. So for you guys as a platform and as an enabler, how are you determining, or how are you helping the ecosystem determine who should or shouldn't IPO? So what are the kind of almost who shouldn't IPO, and how do you get them there to that determination? So we're only getting through that crop that should IPO and will be successful as a route of exit or further liquidity or getting more capital.
Okay. Thank you. I think one thing to just say is, as an exchange, we are investing time across the markets that make sense to us. I mean, this is my third time in South Africa this year, mostly in partnership on sort of capacity building, getting people to ask the questions around what does good look like, am I ready, what are the things that I need to be thinking about in 3 to 5 years. And when people ask me that, okay, what sort of business am I in, I almost say, look, I'm a tech company that sells a lifestyle business, because it takes a while. There's a permanence to the nature of what it is that I'm telling you about, because then once you are part of what you call this elite group, then one, you can speak to the fact that one, you're transparent in terms of how your business practices are being run. You put the right governance structure in place, and you have a business model that allows you to grow, as well as a platform that supports that growth opportunity. I think, in addition, and I was saying that we're a 300-year-old fintech, we continue to innovate, just like most of you companies that are in here. And one of the things that we're doing is we've started engaging with companies at a much more earlier stage. So we come up with a strategy called a funding continuum, where we are backing companies as far back as early stage through what we call flow. And so for UK companies, so if you're looking to raise Series A and above, so there's a platform for you to raise money there. But the one bang in the middle, where, for example, a lot of late stage or even sort of growth stage VCs are thinking about is, how do I sort of trade out of my secondaries? How do I think about exits? We're investing in what is called the first regulated crossover market, such that companies, for example, can use that platform on an intermittent basis to sell down and use it even as a platform to attract the best talents, because most companies will give employees ESOPs and they have to wait for a big trade sale or perhaps an IPO. But imagine that there's a platform that allows you on an intermittent basis, you're holding on to the shares and you can trade up. You can use a public market infrastructure to determine, through an auction process, to determine the price, and you can start to curate shareholders way before you think about a listing. So you can start to use that platform as a training wheel to assess whether your public market is right for you. So being on that platform, you don't necessarily have to sort of think about a public market offering if that's not the way for you. And then, of course, on the right side, we're doing the IPOs, where we're making it easier for companies to be able to come to the London Stock Exchange as much as possible, with all of these sort of reforms, improvements in terms of how research is being done. And more importantly, we're doing a lot of work in terms of equitization of the market.
Fantastic. I've got a couple more questions I do want to ask you guys. But before I do, I'd love to open it up to the audience to get a general sense on sentiments and views on IPOs. So please do start thinking about one or two questions you might have. Before I do, two questions I want to talk about, costs and timelines of an IPO, because I always hear that this is a way too expensive process for us. And as well as that is, we do have London, and as you can tell from my accent, I am from the UK and a big champion and promoter of the UK. But there are exchanges around the world. People talk about the US is where I should be going and get big valuations over there. But we talked about this earlier. Beyond the costs of listing somewhere, actually, what is the priorities for consideration on listing that founders should be and funders should be thinking about for their portfolio companies?
Yeah, I would say for most businesses, a mistake I see often is people look at process and cost in determining whether to IPO and indeed then which market on which to IPO if they do decide to. You've got to look more at the fundamentals. So where are the investors that are likely to invest in me based? Where are the peer groups, so listed companies that look like to me? Where are they based? Where am I going to be best understood? Frankly, where do I want my business to be listed? Because that's where I'm going to have to spend my time. You quite well often end up with a headquarters there. So where do I want to do business? You should look at those factors primarily. That should drive where you list. Process you then have to look at, and cost you need to understand. And there are things you can do to try and minimise the risk on your costs, such as the early looks that Fred was mentioning, where you engage early with investors to try and understand appetite and, importantly, valuation. But I would reiterate, for a well-prepared business, the process can be done in 6 months, and it can be done relatively cheaply. I won't give you a range of costs. It varies enormously by company. But,
can you give us some insight to a cost, and even give us an example, just so people can get an idea of what ballpark we're playing in?
So bearing in mind you've got accountants, lawyers, bankers involved. I have seen people do IPOs for less than $500,000.
Okay.
In terms of cost.
That's an upfront cost, that's a lifetime cost?
That's the cost of the transaction.
Yeah.
There is also a cost of being listed. But I think the thing that people miss out all the time is once you are on the exchange, you're ready to go in terms of further fundraisings and further transactions. So you've become a member of the club, right? It may take you 6 months to do the first offering, but if you wanted to do a follow-on fundraising, and there's plenty of examples of this, you can do follow-on fundraisings in 72 hours. The platform's there, you're on the platform, you can do them really quickly. If you want to do M&A, you can do it really quickly. I think that's what people miss. If you're a private business, every time you do a round, it's 3 or 4 months now. You can't do them in 3 or 4 weeks like you could do in the days of free money. It's 3 or 4 months. You've got fees every single time. You don't get that once you are listed. So, there's a bigger, maybe the initial membership of the listed company club is higher, but once you're there, it's a lot easier and cheaper.
So, Frieda, I'm going to come to you with my final question before we go to the audience. Obviously, we've just talked about new funding that comes beyond IPO, and Nick Tolchard is back in the room from the UK Investment Association. He's been a fantastic steward for us understanding those markets, and someone you should definitely have a chat with afterwards if you understand what comes from a capital allocator at IPO and above. But Frieda, for you guys, if we kind of come back down the value chain, who are the type of investors you're engaging with to look for prospective portfolio companies? So if we've got investors in the room right now, can understand who are the type of investors you're trying to speak with, which is helping you identify prospective companies that might list that you would want to invest in.
So, sorry, talk about what type of investors?
What type of investors are you engaging with who help you source deal flow? So the kind of investors, it's portfolio companies you might invest in.
Yeah, we get our deal flow primarily from brokers. And nomads. They're the ones that bring them through. So in the UK, there have been issues of collusion amongst funds, so we can't speak to our fellow portfolio managers about what they're seeing, but we all tend to see the same thing, particularly if you are at a certain level, which we are at Octopus in terms of venture capital trusts that invest in AIM. Then there's a small sort of group of us, we too tend to see the same thing. So our deal flow primarily comes from brokers and nomads.
And we're not talking about somebody on Bali on a laptop here of nomads, are we? What are these people's profiles or backgrounds or experience?
The brokers and nomads. So the brokers are a part of the sort of investment ecosystem. they're the people that you would be introduced to, as well as the nomads. So they're nominated advisors who would basically hold your hand and introduce you to potential investors. The first process obviously goes with people like, go through Simon and lawyers, and then they tend to have the relationships with brokers and then recommend a broker that would actually be interested in covering your business.
Yep.
Research, so you need corporate research to go with it, because we on the public side, on the IPO side, we don't tend to create most of the models ourselves. The models are actually created on the broker side, then we then take their financial estimates and then make our own valuation from there. So you need a broker who basically covers whatever side of tech or industry that you're in, who understands the region, who would understand your business, because they are your mouthpiece to the investors. So that is a critical part that you can't sidestep.
And a whole new category that I've been learning about that sits in that investment value chain as well that we need to consider. Thank you. So I'm conscious I've got to, we may get played off shortly with the music, but I just want to go to the audience for a couple questions. Does anybody have any questions for any of our panelists, or a general comment? Yes, can see a hand up, just can't see who exactly it is.
Hi, it's Imran Jiva from Stratec Investments. I'm just curious, perhaps this was mentioned and I missed it, but what is the thinking around deepening the IPO capital markets on the African continent? Because it seems like there's a big mismatch of different territories and different depth of capital. So, for example, the JSE has very liquid capital markets, but we don't have very exciting companies to IPO. And the rest of the continent has more interesting companies. They're not going to IPO in the JSE, then they have to go to either the UK or America, and it's kind of orphaned on those exchanges. So it just seems like there needs to be some kind of initiative to keep like a pan-African IPO market that all African exchanges are kind of connected to, perhaps single currency dollarized. And it can't exist in any single country, right? Because there's not enough depth in any single African country. So I just want to know, is there such an initiative underway? How's it going to look? Thoughts around that?
Thank you for the question.
Yes. Look, thank you for that question. I think I'm a big fan of connected markets and fungibility of markets. I think it's quite important. And in the countries that make sense and the regions that make sense, so we're spending a lot of time on capacity building, as I mentioned. So I'm in Nigeria, I'm in Kenya, I'm South Africa, I'm in Morocco, I'm in Egypt. And across these markets, what we're speaking to, and it's what we're speaking to is around partnership. And what London represents to the exchanges there is an extended shopping window for foreign investors into those markets. You may not know this, outside of South Africa, London represents the biggest aggregation of African corporates anywhere else in the world. So 52 odd companies are dual listed between London and South Africa here. And whilst I would perhaps say this, it's an obvious problem which of course requires a call to action and needs a bit more rethinking. There's a capital formation issue in a lot of these markets, whereas in South Africa there's a capital dislocation issue. And I think we're starting to have that conversation, because then it's not a capital formation issue we have here in South Africa, it's capital dislocation. Too many small funds all across not coming together to fund businesses. And I think, again, this is one of several conversations, and I'm looking now for Tracy in the room. I'll probably let her have the mic, because this is one of the things she's been sort of pushing aggressively in terms of how markets can get coordinated, where you can see effective capital flow to finance businesses. When you really step back to startups and scale-ups, ultimately what you see behind there are sort of fundamental businesses that have an impact on the continent. And for me, when people talk about impact, I say any business that is effectively feeding 10 families on the continent is impact. That's how I say it. So I think having a rethink and having sort of regulators and various sort of stakeholders start to think about how we push and solve the capital formation problems in specific markets, and then here in South Africa, how we fix that capital dislocation issue, I think is quite key. I I don't know who's got the mic in the room. I think I've seen Tracy, so she can speak to that, what she's doing on there.
We'll go to Tracy, then we'll have time for one more question, I think.
Sure, thanks for that. I think the point I'd say too, and given the work we're doing, is it's not a binary one exchange over the other. It's more an and/or. And I think we recognize, I mean, part of the work that I do is also talk to the asset management side of the value chain. We still need local capital markets because we need institutions to buy local products. And we need them to buy better local products. So we're still supporting local markets. But if you look at the valuation uplift, particularly of what we call the megatrons, which are our new telcos, most of them that have listed locally are not getting the uplift in value that they need. They need to be locally listed. They need to be in a portfolio of a local asset manager's holdings. But most importantly, they need to be available on an international exchange to realize their valuation. And that may not be entirely, it might be in part. So hopefully we'll see a few more interesting spin-offs, but definitely it's an and/or. It's not a binary either/or. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks. So I have time for one more question, then wrapping up, Mark. Does anybody have another question? Yes, gentleman there on the left.
Thank you. Brian from E Squared. Not sure if Abby or Tracy would like to take this one, but it's more around the prevailing sentiment where we're seeing a number of delistings. What do we think needs to happen to see less companies delisting from exchanges? Is it a function of tough economic environment, tough macro environment, and that's why this is happening? Or are there some behaviors that, I don't know, could change from the investor side or the regulator side that will make it easier for management teams to, and other shareholders or key shareholders, and we are to try and, I guess, encourage their companies and corporates to maintain listings and push more for, more listings as opposed to remaining being in businesses within the private domain as opposed to the public domain?
Okay. I would take that question in part, and I think Frida perhaps will have one recent example to talk about.
We'll do a quick 1 minute from each person.
Yes,
I'll
okay.
comment before we wrap up.
Quick. So if you look at markets are in cycles, right? Which means that, capital also needs to be recycled across. Every now and then, what we are as an exchange is a platform. Again, users and providers. And putting a company on the exchange gives the visibility, means that, private equity would, from time to time, see hidden value in certain companies and want to take it private, get some value and bring it back. When you see delistings, it's, of course, you see certain times that you see a lot of delistings, and you also see a lot of companies come back to the market. The point that I'm saying to you is that capital is not being destroyed. It's coming back in some shape or form. So I'm less worried about the point when people are saying there are lots of delistings, so long as the capital is being recycled, and that's what we need on exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, some of the delistings that we've seen is our companies being taken private, and that's not because the management team decided or board decided that they wanted to be. We've had quite a few companies taken out. When markets are bad, valuations are low. Private equity still have deep pockets at the moment, so this is like a feasting ground for them. So a lot of private equity are literally hunting companies on the exchange. I mean, sometimes it's for okay valuations, there's a takeout premium. Sometimes we're disappointed even though we get that takeout premium because we still believe that the company should remain public. But if our CEOs are offered and the board's offered a price that they can't refuse, they take it. So I think a lot of it's not negative, and some of them do come back. As Abby said, we've currently got a private company in our portfolio. It's a SaaS business. We've owned it for about 10 years. They were taken out by private equity. They have told us they have an intention to come back on the market in 2 years' time, and they'll be a much bigger business when they come back on the market.
Simon, you're putting them on the pitch. Are you also getting them off the pitch at half-time and then putting them back on again?
I mean, sadly, the IPO markets haven't been great for the last 2 years, and that's one of the reasons we see quite a bit of delisting chatter. The other two things, I think you need to unpack the delistings, and this applies to the JSE and others. When we look at things being taken over, when we look at things being strategically acquired, when we look at even on things going bust, frankly, that is normal capital markets activity. What worries me is when things are delisting just because they don't like being private. And we're not seeing too much of that, and where we are seeing it tends to be small caps, like really small caps, either where the business has failed or where, frankly, they were probably too small to come on in the first place. A lot of those came on the noughties, and we're now seeing them cycle out. So I think that's fine. So I'm not dismissing the problem, but it's not quite as bad as sometimes the headlines would make you believe for those factors. The other thing I think we are going to see play through is if we look internationally, other than in the last 18 months, for a decade before that, there was lots of free money privately, right? We've had ultra low interest rates, so international investors have had very deep pockets. And loads of businesses we've been talking to over the last decade, the mantra's been, well, just raise money privately, you can do it in a fortnight, get to real scale, then IPO. So if you look at some of the big tech businesses coming to London, they've been coming in at multiple $1 billion, some of them, because they could just get free private money. That is changing now, and we're not really seeing that come through, but it will.
Perfect, thank you. So thank you for the question. So I know I have to wrap up now. A couple observations from this I'll take away, and then I'm going to come to you and ask you just how can the audience, the ecosystem engage with you? What are the touch points you want to offer versus what you'd like to speak to? There is a market for IPOs on various ways to list, but it's a small pool of companies that should be doing it. And being IPO ready is actually being best practice business ready for scale and growth in any shape or form, and it should be looked at to help your business grow. And there's access to support. You're doing free masterclasses, LSE is engaging with other entities and organizations to do various programs, so is that support out there for it? And Tracy Austin, who spoke just now with the Pumpers and Trade, are doing a lot of work for mobilizing key stakeholders, including ourselves over the last week or so thank you to them. But yeah, quick word from each of you for how people can engage with you with relation to the topic today. Simon.
Yeah, I would generally say take good advice, but also take free advice that's available. As I said earlier, I'm happy to spend half a day with a business doing a workshop, working through with them what an IPO would mean to me. You can probably get lawyers to do similar, you'll be able to get investment banks to do similar, and I'm sure the exchange would. So do that, do learning in your own circumstance. I think that's really powerful for anyone who's contemplating IPO.
And people can look out for your masterclasses again in 2024.
Yeah, and indeed come to masterclasses. There are events we run. As I said, I'm well travelled, happy to meet on the continent, happy to meet in London.
Excellent. Frida.
I guess you can find me on LinkedIn. As I mentioned earlier, we're open to seeing early looks. They'll come through the London Stock Exchange, so harass Abby if...
You're outsourcing your ask and your engagement, I like it.
If you are keen on doing an early look in London, he'll definitely pass on the details.
Abby, closing remarks to you.
Good. Thank you, everyone. I think IPOs are a very useful way for you to democratize ownership. I'm a big fan of national champions allowing their customers who supported them from the get-go to benefit in their sort of economic growth. So taking your public companies private, I beg your pardon, taking your companies public, it's a very useful way for you to allow those customers that have helped you get a product market fit and actually supported you by buying your products and going forward. So do please reach out to me. I'm always happy to have a conversation and also to connect you as appropriate.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much to my panelists for joining us and for the question of the audience, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Hopefully a few new IPO stories to share. So thank you, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony. What a great conversation. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
You can definitely get off the stage, and we'll make some space for some of our pitchers who are going to be joining us. A great conversation indeed. I've got to say, before you started, the word IPO was really, really intimidating. But I love how Anthony put it together, saying that IPO ready is actually really good business practice, and that's something that we can take away from this conversation. We're going to move on swiftly with the rest of the day's proceedings. If there's one thing that has been fun and exciting throughout these last 2 days, was having our startups come and stand on this stage, amazing stage, come and pitch and showcase what it is that they'd like to offer the rest of the African continent, and I guess the world as well. They are startups, they are nervous. We've got a fantastic jury who's going to listen to what it is that they have to offer. They have 3 minutes, and thereafter the jury has some questions for them. So we look forward to seeing what our startups have on offer for us. We're going to be getting into the climate tech pitch track in just a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first up in our climate tech pitches, we do have Drive Electric, Night and Apps. And you're going to be sharing your dream with the rest of the team in the auditorium and also to our jury. Who has the clicker, please? Anybody has the clicker? We can proceed. All right, a reminder that our pitchers only have 3 minutes on stage to share their pitch. 3 minutes on stage to tell us what it is they are planning to do for the continent. Thereafter, the jury will have their own 3 minutes for some questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Drive Electric. This is nerve-wracking. Let's show him some support. Pitching his ideas, all the best.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Francis Romano from Drive Electric, which is a renewable and clean mobility company based in Nairobi. So what you see on the screen is what we do every day. Who among us does not have a ride-hailing app? Can I see by show of hands? If you've never called a taxi before? Only one person. It seems all of us are using taxis in our day-to-day life. So, taxis is what we use every day, and they have high emissions in our day-to-day life. There is rising fossil fuel, and as you have just confirmed that there is almost many different types of ride-hailing apps. In my city, we have about 10,000 taxis that are running the city every single day. What do? We provide electric taxis for our day-to-day life. We provide solar integrated charging infrastructure. And when the batteries are aging in most of our taxis, we recall them, we replace them, and we put them back into our energy charging systems. Some of our customers are corporates, and we provide them transport as a service as well. Here is a very good example of what we do in one of our charging hubs that we construct. This is a team of our taxis. If you come into Nairobi, you are likely to drive into any one of these. They'll pick you from the airport. We have about 70 taxis that we are running in the city of Nairobi. And here you can see the revenues of a single taxi in a day. Up to 70% of the amount paid in transport goes to energy and leasing of the taxis. So we provide transport as a service, and we also provide energy as a service as our revenue model. We have, at the moment, assets up to about $0.8 million that we have already invested over the last few years. We have already raised about $1 million of developing our charging infrastructure. And at this moment, we are looking to increase our investment into about $3 million in building our charging infrastructure in the city of Nairobi. So we're very happy to partner with most investors who are interested to support us. And this is the business we want to decarbonize the transport sector in the city of Nairobi. This is our team. It's our team and structure. We are a company that has a corporate structure already. We are already in the business for quite a while, and we have engineers and a number of other people. We have about a workforce of about 100 people across East Africa, and with this kind of workforce, we are ready to develop a charging infrastructure as well as taxi leasing services across the cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done, Drive Electric. All right, over to our jury. If you have some questions for Drive Electric, please.
Thank you for the presentation. So can you take me more through the business model? Like, how much are you charging for how much are you charging per taxi and charge up, and how much are those taxis? I see you doing the lease to own model. How much are you renting the cars out in terms of the taxi owners or the taxi drivers finally buying out the cars?
Sorry, I didn't get the question clearly. How much are we raising, or?
No, how much are you how much do the taxi drivers have to pay to charge on all charging stations as revenue? And how much I see you got a lease to own model there. How much is the rent to each taxi driver till the time they can own the car?
Okay, for the lease-to-own model, the taxis normally pay a daily rate, and within this daily rate, they are able to pay both the asset finance part of it, and they are also able to pay the energy part of it. So we are not exactly the asset financing company. This we work with the local banks who eventually finance these taxis. We bring in the taxis and they buy it off us, and they pay their financials in an asset finance model. However, on our charging infrastructure, we have a rate per unit of energy consumed, which is about 0.3 of a dollar.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, great presentation, thank you. Just want to know about your plans to scale. You mentioned you have a team of over 100 in East Africa. So which markets are you planning to add to, and who are your existing clients? And the numbers, thank you.
We are an energy company and a charging infrastructure company. And for this to happen, we manage many different assets across. For example, in Nairobi alone, we have about 30 public charging points. And we seek to increase this to almost 100, 200, depending on how the market develops. So to manage this kind of asset, which is mostly a hardware asset, we need a lot of people to be able to manage either the solar system, the batteries, charging infrastructure, or even the charging itself. This we already have at least to manage our network at the moment.
One quick question in the 30 seconds that you have left. There are a number of companies that are doing similar things in Nairobi and in Africa at large. What's your single key differentiator on that market?
Actually, there isn't. We are the first ones who are doing charging infrastructure at this point in time. We have the largest public charging infrastructure in Nairobi. There are companies that are working in the two-wheeler and the buses segment. We sit into the public charging infrastructure, and as it stands, we have the largest network across that region.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just like that, 3 minutes over with the jury. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Wow, all the best. Drive Electric. You guys look like you got it all together already. What are you doing on the stage? I'm just kidding. All right, as we continue with our climate tech session for today, our next startup is called Igugu Clean Tech. Igugu, I'm assuming is Xhosa, our pride, but I could be corrected here. But it really is about being proud to be African and what it is that we can offer the rest of the continent by cleaning up our climate. All right, off you go. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Igugu Clean Tech.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zintlangiti. I'm the founder of Igugu Clean Tech. We are a South African-based startup looking to change the landscape of the petroleum industry in South Africa. We do this by helping the oil and gas industry decarbonize and transition from fossil-based fuels to renewable energy fuel. The problem, as we can see, there is climate change. We cannot run away from that. We are experiencing massive global warming challenges from extreme rains, extreme heating, and so on. And the biggest causes or the biggest contributors to these issues that we're currently facing in the south region of Africa is the fuel industry. So the fuel industry has a major issue. One, they need to decarbonize urgently. They are the highest committers of CO2. They are paying high penalties in carbon tax. Yet they don't have sustainable feedstock to allow them to transition to bioenergy or renewable energy. This is where we come in. Igugu has identified a plant or a crop called Solaris, We use this plant to help these industries decarbonize. The Solaris plant absorbs CO2 at a remarkable rate while it's growing. It acts as a carbon sink. And once it's fully grown and harvested, we can extract it oil to produce carbon neutral fuel. The biomass can be used to create electric energy in the form of gas to energy. We can help generate carbon credits. And there's also a biomass in the form of protein cake. This helps in the industries of animal feed and fertilizer. Our product fit, it burns longer, it's cleaner for the environment, and this concept has already been proven in South Africa doing jet fuel and biodiesel. Our competitive landscape, currently Igugu Cleantech is ranging the best in comparison to our competition. We have access to over 100,000 hectares of land, and our Solaris crop is patented. Essentially, the business has 4 income streams in the form of oil or biofuels, protein cake, the biomass, and the carbon credit.
All right, thank you so much, Igugu. And I can see you were trying to get in the financial projections. That's your 3 minutes that are up, and I'm sure the jury will have some questions leading on to your next slide. Jury, off to you, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I see you've got a wonderful team there. In terms of your patent plant, the Solaris, how many hectares do you need to plant to produce a barrel of the biofuel that one can then use into generating different ranges of products that you highlighted?
Okay, so to just put it in context, if we grow 1 hectare of Solaris, that will give us 1,000 liters of oil. That will give us 60 tons of biomass, and that will give us 8 tons of seed of protein cake.
Okay, then how much would you sell a liter of the Solaris biofuel to? Yeah, just for example.
So for example, we'll be looking at the national grid if we're selling the end product, which is the biofuel, so we can come in at a discounted rate from the national grid. However, if you're looking at just selling the oil, then you can look at pricing it at around 10 Rand per liter.
Hi, thanks for the great presentation. I'm just curious, so like, how do you patent?
Sorry, I didn't get the
How do
question.
you put a patent on a plant?
So the plant is engineered. So it's a tobacco crop, but it's engineered to remove the nicotine and enhance the oil production in the plant.
And the patent is where? In the US, in South Africa?
There is a global patent, and there's also a South African patent on the crop.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you already have any offtake partners, or are you in discussions with any potential clients now, customers?
Yes, so we do have one offtake at the moment, and we are in discussions with one of the fuel majors in the country to work scale up our business and partner with them through their own decarbonization program. Okay.
So you're in charge yourself of like planting the Solaris crop and growing it and harvesting?
We mobilize farmers. We've got a database of commercial farmers, and we also work with smallholder farmers and rural communities. So we then are in charge of the aggregation of that whole process, from farming to seed, then harvesting, and then processing post-harvest.
Fantastic. Thank you, jury. Thank you, Igugu. One more time, please. A round of applause for Igugu Clean Tech. Well done. All the best on that. I'm sure it must have been nerve-wracking. I love that question from one of the jury, like, how do you patent a plant? A plant's a plant. It grows from Mother Nature. How do you patent? But Igugu are smart, and they're coming up with their own things, so that was very cool. Thank you so much for that. On to our next startup for this afternoon.
How does the clicker work?
Chaji or
Right,
Chaji? But of course, you'll let us know how to pronounce the name of your startup for today. All the best. Thank you, and show us how you are going to make global changes on the African continent.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing all right. I'm just going to jump straight into it. There are over 35 million riders who, on a daily basis, transport goods and people across the subcontinent. And these riders rely on this as their single source of income. Over the last couple of years, these riders' income have decreased by over 30%. Due to global volatile oil markets and inflation. Also ensuring that low-income consumers' transport costs have increased. The time to shift and transition was yesterday. The next best time is today to enhance these riders' incomes and also mitigate an environmental problem. There are a few challenges that exist, a few obstacles that exist, and most of these center around the power provision to these two-wheelers and three-wheelers that ride on the African roads. Some of them include the access to charging. The next one is the interoperability and scalability of existing solutions. And the third one being the high deployment cost and high operational cost as well. We sat down, we considered all these challenges, and we went out to market. And through this, I think we've come up with a really unique product. We took a regular socket, we gave it a brain, added the necessary authorization, security, safety features, layered it with our special sauce. It's the proprietary Chargy firmware. And all of this we did without actually increasing the pricey tag on it. And now we're proud to announce that it's happy to be deployed across urban and peri-urban areas. Together with this product, which is the ESOC, along with our management platform, combined with our business model, which enables anyone, anywhere to become a fuel station of the future. We are excited to pioneer this shift in the electric two-wheeler, electric three-wheeler space, or at least accelerate it. Our customers include our operators. These operators could exist in the peri-urban and urban areas. In the urban area, these could be commercial centers, utilities, gas stations, leisure centers. And an exciting business model we also have is in the peri-urban areas. We're empowering small shops to deliver power through our agent model as well. Our second customer is the EV driver. How do we make money from these two customers? Well,
and I'm sure we'd like to know, Chargy, but your time is up, so that means it's up to our jury to actually ask you those questions. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to head on over to our jury.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so what's your revenue model?
Great question. So we have a hardware markup right now of 35%. We've got a monthly platform fee of $3 to $4. This monthly platform fee is also a revenue share fee depending on our operating model that we provide. Transaction fee from the driver's side, minimal 8 to 6%. We're still considering our subscription or network access fee. This is to the drivers as part of accessing this network, this convenient network. We hope to deploy it with our partners. An annual fee, and those are the future opportunities over there.
Great presentation. Yeah, how many users have you got using your app and your charging stations?
So you're talking about traction.
Yeah,
Great
traction,
question.
yes.
So as part of our traction, within the last year, we were able to prototype, commercialize, and deploy the solution and earn our first revenue, which I think was a pretty incredible feat. Our first customer has been a large asset financer known as Mkopa. In order to sell their electric bikes, finance electric bikes, we are an enabler to the solution, right? So they are going to be with us deploying about 200 units across Nairobi within the next couple of months. So yeah, first revenue, and we commercialized 2 months ago.
And then in terms of the market, what makes you different from, there are quite a few players now in Nairobi, so.
Well, ultimately, we're the first African company to develop this hardware solution. Our closest competitor currently sits in India. We're excited to say that to acquire our first customer in Mkopa, we beat out an Indian company who's raised over $30 million in terms of where our hardware stands. So we're really, really proud about that. How else are we different? We control the proprietary algorithms on our hardware. We manufacture this, therefore enabling low-cost, low-scale deployment of this very, very expensive infrastructure, which is one of the inhibitors to large-scale deployments. So I think controlling those costs has this great advantage for us. Our business model is also one of our advantages. We're democratizing the scale. We want everyone, anywhere, to set up this infrastructure, earn income from it in a very easy kind of franchise model way.
Thank you. Tell us more about the team.
We're a small team who've been able to hit big milestones in a very rapid time. We've proved our caliber, I think, by being able to successfully commercialize and deploy this first piece of hardware. And we're excited to use this base layer tech that we've developed to enhance more energy and charging solutions for this electric vehicle and sustainable transport space in the future.
Fantastic. Chaji, thank you. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And may there be many more Mkopas who are going to be, tapping your guys' doors and asking for some assistance, which is fantastic. Thank you. Well done. Next up, in our final startup for today, Miyonga. Please come and join us on the stage and let us know what it is that you have to offer for the African continent and what kind of difference you want to make by way of our climate in ensuring that we continue to live on this gorgeous continent. So it's been a fantastic time of pitching sessions with our startups, and thank you to my jury. We are going to have our last one for this afternoon. Miyonga, please make your way onto the stage. Round of applause. It's our final pitch for this afternoon. Miyonga.
It's still off. Oh, it's on now. Sorry. I'm Yvonne from Miyonga, and we save food deliciously and sustainably. Miyonga is a company that's working with smallholder farmers across Kenya to reduce post-harvest loss by taking the surplus fruits that they have and selling it transforming it into a valuable food product that has direct demand in Europe. To quickly let you know why we are here, we are raising $1.25 million to help us increase our production capacity. Now, why do we need to do this? Well, our immediate need is that we have customers who want about 15 containers worth of dried fruits. We can only do 60 containers worth of dried fruits. We can only do 15. So to be able to meet that deficit, we need an investment through increasing our drying capacity. Currently, that's the challenge that we have, and it's the reason that we are here today. our solution to help reduce the food waste is we've come up with a model fruit drying facility, which goes from different farm gate levels, different regions, drying the fruit. Then it is sent into a central packing facility before we ship the product to Europe, where there's a huge demand for the dried fruits. This is what we've done in the past. We were 7 years ago farmers, complete farmers, 1.5 acres of land, but we currently have grown a 10,000 US dollar seed funding into a company that's attracting 1 million in terms of sales. So that's one of the reasons you should think why you need to invest in us. So to meet the unmet demand, one of the things we try to do is to try and outsource the fruits from different suppliers. This puts a great dip in our profits. It actually dented our profits very much. So what we then had to do, the only option we had to do is renegotiate with our buyers. We have successfully been able to do that. And they now have asked us to just focus on growing the company and increasing our production. With investments, we will be well on track to meet that particular demand, and with profits of 500,000 up to the year 2029. We currently are trying to raise 2.25 million. We have raised half of that. We're now looking for the second half. We've raised it through a grant. To be able to unlock the other 1 million, we need the 1.25 million in investments. It's going straight into the factory. But more than going into the factory, we are helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, creating jobs for about 7,000 farmers across Kenya and 1,900 casual workers across Kenya. 37% of them are women. And so we are a women-owned company. We are still trying to hire more people, and we are looking for partners who will help us to help reduce waste by transforming loss into profitable opportunities for communities. Thank you.
Well done, Miyonga. Beautiful stuff indeed, and I'm so inspired by your Women Empowered team over there, because today's theme pretty much was about women in tech, so it's great to see what you and your ladies have been getting up to, but it's not up to me to say. Jury, what do you have in store for Miyonga, please?
Now, thank you for a great presentation, and I think we need more entrepreneurs like yourselves building real-life economy business like this. Congrats. So I have two questions for you. I think the first one is on your distribution channels. Okay, you sell to European markets. How does that work exactly? And then I have a second question. Your slides were showing that I think with 15 containers you were making $1 million. With 60 containers you're doing only 3. And so I was wondering where the last 4th million went.
Okay, good question. So how we sell to our distribution channel is pretty straightforward. We had 3 things. The first one is we're selling to real distributors in Europe who are buying it at bulk, repacking it, or buying it at bulk and selling it to different supermarkets in Europe. Then we also have buyers who buy from us, have us pack it in their brand, and then they sell it in Europe themselves. But we also have a registered product. Miyonga's registered in Germany as a brand. You can actually go online and buy the brand in Germany, in Europe directly. So that's the direct sales. That's one of the things that we are planning to do. To answer the question in terms of the revenue and why 15 containers have different types of, we have different varieties of fruits. So we have mangoes, pineapples, bananas, and coconuts. Mangoes have a higher price rate than the pineapples. The pineapples are higher than the bananas, then the coconuts. So if you have the different variety of fruits, depending on which fills a container, it then makes a difference in the revenues.
Yeah, so tell me a bit more. I want to know a bit more about these drying containers, the mobile. Do you have a picture of it? Can you tell me about how it works and what makes it so special and unique, and in terms of the impacts that you have?
Okay, sorry. I was just about to rush and grab a pack of dried fruits and show you the difference. So how a mobile fruit container works is definitely in the fruits value chain, we have different climatic conditions. So you have different fruits growing during different seasons, and when a fruit is in season, it's in surplus at that particular point. Then it goes out of season. So you have to go to a different region to kind of dry a different fruit. The traditional model is that people have a brick and mortar kind of factory, and when the fruit is out of season, you have idle time. But with a mobile factory, you're actually taking the factory to the people, drying it, and when that season is over, you go where the next fruit is in season. The best advantage about it is when you dry a fruit, you actually reduce the volume by about 10 times. So when competitors have to transport 10 trucks worth of fresh to get just 1 truck of dried, we are only transporting the dried, and that's making us 10 times more efficient. Yeah.
All right.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jury. Thank you, Miyonga.
Thank
you
you
so much. Oh, that's absolutely stunning. I saw you said you were quickly going to run and go get a pack of that mango honey. I'm here for that. Thank you. I will have some. I'll take some for now and take some for snacking a little bit later on. It sounds delicious. Thank you so much to our jury. You have been fantastic. That is the last of our rounds of the pitching from the startups for this afternoon. We're going to continue with the conversations that we are going to have. And the next conversation that we will be having actually after our startups, debt versus equity, or actually later stage funding, Series B and above, and the liberalization of IPO and M&A. So this one should probably get quite interesting, actually. And we've got the later stage funding that is taking place right now, Nathaniel. All right, later on, debt versus equity. Right, here we go. Debt versus equity, new models to explore during winter times. And the winter time is coming. You're a fan, sister girl. I know. Okay. Wintertime is coming. So what do we do in those times? And what are the smart decisions that we should be making as startups? So that is the next conversation we are going to be having. And we look forward to our fantastic panel who will be joining us. Please come on to the stage. I'm going to call on Rana, Jean, Mobolaji, and Nathaniel to join us.
Hello, hello.
Okay, testing 1, 2, phenomenal. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I just maybe ask everyone in the audience just to stand up for like 1 second? Can everyone in the audience just stand up for 1 second? I know it's been, it's been one hell of a long day. Just maybe do a little stretch to the side, to the other side. Also, guys, I want you guys to come a little bit closer, build a little bit more community. I know we've got some microphones, but like, come fill up the front seats, because after this, we're gonna have an award ceremony. So would it be nice, trust me, we don't bite, we don't hurt, we don't sting. We fly like butterflies. It's going to be a really fun session. I've got 3 incredible panelists with me today. I've got Rana Abdel Latif from Include VC, Jean Laurier from Mavericks, and Mobolaji Adoe from Consonant Invest. So maybe before we kick off this incredible topic, and it's not later stage funding, it's probably my mistake. It's been a very long day. Just so that you do know, this is venture debt. So exploring new models, equity versus debt. So how do we really unpack this, and how do we look at this? So before we start, I would like to have our panelists just give a quick introduction. Where are you from? Who are you? Where are you based? And what's your contribution to the ecosystem? Thank you.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Before I get started, I just wanted to quick poll with the audience. How many startups do we have with us today? And great. And any VCs or capital allocators? Okay, great. So it's good to know. Mostly startups. Great to know that, so we can tailor the conversation to best help you in your journey. So I'm Rana Abdulatif. I'm Egyptian. I live in Cairo, and I work at a fund called Include. We're a fintech-focused fund that invests primarily in Egyptian companies, but we do have quite a bit of a mandate to invest outside of Egypt. And the birth of Include came a few years ago with, accelerated by COVID and the need for further cashless transactions to take place and financial inclusion of sort of the individuals and businesses that were not part of the financial system. And so that was when Include was sort of put together, and we've started deploying last year, and always excited to see new products in the fintech and fintech-enabled spaces to invest in.
Thank you. By the way, the startups were really, impressive. So, great job. I actually really enjoyed the presentations. My name is Bolaji Adeoye. I work at Consonance. I'm Nigerian. Consonance is a sector-agnostic fund. We focus on, pre-seed to Series A. Recently though, we're actually fundraising now. So, so we're, we've been sort of at the other side. So we've been kind of talking all day. But recently, we are launching an accelerator for nature-inspired innovation. We call it biomimicry. Which is going to be embedded into our fund. So we're looking for like 10 candidates that we can sort of graduate in the first cohort, so that we can make some investments once they graduate. So glad to be here, and looking forward to a great conversation.
Hi everyone, my name is Jean-Noël Odier. Very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for staying so long. We are the last slot in the conference, so trying to keep you entertained and interested. So my name again, Jean-Noël Odier. I'm a Swiss-French national. I've been in venture capital, private equity, and entrepreneurship for the past 20 years. Started with the venture capital division of Charles Schwab. Was based in the United States back then. I've worked for various other venture capital firms, private equity firms. The last stint was with, as a partner with Bamboo Capital Partners, which is an impact investment firm based in Geneva, where I was focused on Africa venture capital investment, early stage. So I've been standing on both sides, on the financing side, but also on the entrepreneurship side, having started myself a couple of companies as a co-founder position. Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Can we give our panelists a round of applause? Great. I love that everyone's still alive.
We should have asked them after we finished.
No, it's
just to make sure we earned it.
It's multiple. It's multiple. I'm sure you will. So, Jean-Noël Odier, maybe to start with you, if we're taking a look at the economics of financing your venture, we know that there's a lot of equity investors that are lacking some dry powder in the ecosystem, especially with the market downturn, and also with winter times that are abruptly coming, and we don't know when it's going to end. I would like to know, if we're chatting to an audience of startups, I'm very curious to find out, when you're navigating around raising equity and debt within this time period, what recommendations could you give forward to some of the founders in the audience in terms of navigating the pool of, should I raise equity now or should I raise debt, and when is a good time to do that? Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. So typically, the equity is the underwriting of the ultimate risk of the company, right? So usually equity is the first type of financing that you're getting. And then when the company matures and is able to produce what lenders like, which is collateral. So if you start having inventory, if you start having receivables, if you start having long-term assets that you can finance against, then debt becomes your friend. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can't do debt, and that's the whole purpose of the discussion today, is that we are seeing, first of all, the two of the equity and the debt converging.
So you have a handful of hybrid instruments which combine the benefit and the risk of debt and equity. And also you're seeing a migration more and more, and that's probably more recent, where you're seeing debt being done more at an earlier stage through various type of mechanism. One of the reasons, and it's not so much, and that's my personal interpretation, is that the migration of debt towards an early stage is not so much reflective of the fact that debt wants to take more risk, is more reflecting of the fact that there is an abundance of debt capital that's looking to be deployed. And that is just, so it's an opportunity for a founder if there is to take on debt instead of equity, because you avoid the dilution. And at the end of the day, the risk to you is not that much different. At the end of the day, if the company goes bust and you won't repay the debt and you won't repay the equity, so the risk, there is less dilution and less risk on your side.
I just wanted to add a couple of things, because we typically do earlier stage investments, and we work with our founders early on to prepare them for the need of debt. But a few words to the why. So, debt is there to support your business. It's not there to replace equity. Debt is going to put a significant burden sooner or later on your cash flows. So before you go out and start raising for debt, you need to be absolutely sure that your cash flows can sustain. Debt can be a form of dilution, so it's really important once you're ready and out there and negotiating, it's really, really important for you to understand what the terms of this debt facility really mean, and sort of using your equity investors and your service providers and supporters and going back to them to understand really the extent of which this debt facility will have an impact on your business. And last but not least, the earlier the better. If you prepare yourselves as a business in terms of reporting, in terms of being clean around your reporting and data, in terms of having good governance, you'll have a much easier time to be able to raise that facility when the time comes.
100%. Thank you so much, Rona. Maybe to bounce the ball to you, Mobolaji, I'm quite interested to find out, when you look at newborn companies, right, a lot of them are coming out raising debt. You're also looking at other sectors where you look at like deep tech or other like industries where the capital is a little bit higher than what you would do if you're looking at a simple SaaS or another like fintech model startup. So I'm quite interested to find out like what's your opinion on raising debt, and at what stage do you think is the right method in order to go forward with it?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that, with my co-panelists, that you have to be very cautious about raising debt, right, until you have some level of stability in your revenue or sizable revenue. You need some predictability. Otherwise, you're going to introduce some level of fragility into your business, right? Because at the early stage, you're experimenting, and you need that flexibility to be able to sort of make those decisions. So we often say that, resilience is a feature, not a bug. It's something that most people don't, it's tough to hear that. But I think once you think that you need debt broadly, I think the real question is, how to sort of pare down your operating expenses, right? And I think negotiating with your suppliers, as well. But in terms of the different kind of models that we've seen, we run a debt program for our portfolio companies. And we've kind of seen some of the ones that did well and some of the ones that struggled. I think SaaS models are very attractive candidates for debt, mainly because they tend to have very high margins, right? They tend to have predictable flow of revenue. And I think that at the end of the day, we are underwriting their customers, especially when we can identify those customers, right? So the critical thing for us is that we want to be as close to that collection as much as possible. The other types of businesses that that I think can also take on some debt are businesses that are orchestrating value chains, right, or integrating value chains, where that debt opportunity, is being demanded by maybe SMEs that they are supporting. They've built some level of clarity around the flow of transactions. So once we see that, we can somewhat predict, what the flow of revenue will be. So we can sort of underwrite that. So I mean, there are opportunities to do that, right? I mean, but it's on a case-by-case basis.
100%. And I mean, you did mention that you're fundraising at the moment.
Yeah, I am.
During the hottest winter we've ever experienced. So, considering that winter, and I mean, I've seen a lot of fund managers are like struggling to close their third rounds because, everyone is kind of like cash tight. Yeah. So based on your experience from fundraising this year, and you don't have to answer this question because I know it goes a little bit personal, but I'd like to know, for instance, like, has there been any consideration on developing more on the debt side because of the landscape, or the economic landscape we're into? Or what's the plan going forward in case, things go to the latter or go to the right? Or what's the contingency plan for risk?
In terms of, are we seeing people raising debt or equity? I just want to be clear.
So people raising equity,
yeah,
but might not be successful in raising that full, equity round.
Yeah.
And might have to consider, other options like debt.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when you're sort of at the, almost sort of like at a growth phase, yeah, right? And you want to sort of extend your, maybe like you want to grow faster, right? You can sort of supplement your equity with debt, especially if you don't want additional dilution. But the principles still apply. What I mentioned earlier about, there has to be stability of revenue. There has to be some level of consistency in revenue and stability of revenue. The reality is that most creditors still want to underwrite based on a collateral. Where the creativity occurs is, how you define the collateral, right? And I think there's a lot of flexibility around that based on your business model. I'll give you an example. There was a company that we helped provide debt capital to. They're a payment company, similar to Yoko. I don't know if you know Yoko. So they have point of sales devices. So the point of sales devices became collateral, and we're comfortable with that because, those can be transferred to somebody else, right? So those are some of the types of but I think, the same principles apply. I think, but if you're a growth company, I think you just have a bit more, your flexibility and the scope of sort of repayments is higher. Yeah.
So I would add perhaps that, you're rightfully pointing out that, the decision on, when is the right time for debt is really looking at the fundamentals of the company, the P&L and the balance sheet, the type of collateral the company is able to produce. The other point of view that you can take is the point of view of the insider, right? So you have several people. You have the founder, you have the early stage investors who have equity capital, and then you have a potential debt provider. Right? And we had a situation, very interesting situation, with an investment we were making back in the Bamboos days. It was a South African company. And we led the pre-Series A. That was a pure equity investment. We were, we bridged the company to get to a steady growth path, which the company achieved. We managed to have a Series A led by a very good deep-pocketed investor at a valuation that was a little bit below what we were hoping. And when I say we, is the founder and us as early-stage investor. But we still accepted that because this was quality money, a lot of dry powder. They wanted to acquire more and more equity, and they wanted to keep funding the company. They wanted to deploy the capital over and beyond what they had put in the Series A. We found a win-win situation by agreeing that they would fund the company through a shareholder loan as opposed to another round of equity after the Series A, right? Why this was interesting for them is that they could have a more secure investment, so they get first in line in the capital structure of the company. So if something goes wrong, then they get that chunk of money back. And for us, that was an opportunity to avoid further dilution. So we get penalized in a way in the first round because we got diluted more than we were hoping, but that wasn't going to happen again because that debt was structured as a convertible debt. So yes, they were getting a bit of an interest paid in cash, but that there was prime plus 3%, which is by South African standards super low. Their return was achieved by an agreement that they would convert with a minimum return of, I don't know, I think it was 20 or 25%. That's a lot more juicier for them, okay? Almost like equity return. But we knew that between the agreement, the deployment of this loan and the conversion, we would do a lot more than 25% increase of the equity value. We would do like 3 times, 4 times that. So we were very happy to give 25% to the note holder in exchange of their conversion rights. And they were very happy because 25% on debt is pretty cool as well, right? So it was a win-win situation between...
Phenomenal. So maybe I want to do a little change up here because we have a room full of incredible founders. I just want to see by a show of hands, how many of you guys have actually raised debt during the course of your company growth? So there's 1, there's 2.
How many have thought about it? Okay.
Okay.
What stopped you?
No, really, what stopped you? Maybe if we can get another chair up here, we can maybe do a little bit of a fishbowl.
Yeah.
I think that would be really nice.
You can also get a mic.
Great to understand his experience.
Yeah, I'd love to get that experience. So where is one of those people who have raised debt? Maybe Mr. Hein from Arabo Growth. What was your experience like?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so Hein from Arabo Growth. We were fortunate enough to find investors that were willing to help us in an industry that's very young and very new. And we realized we had to raise a little bit of debt. So we kind of raised interest-free debt, but had to offer up a little piece of equity. So there's always a little give and take. And what we're doing at the moment, we're a very asset-heavy company. So we've opened a pre-seed round and considering a portion of that to go still debt financing. But we have ran the numbers to know that the revenue can kind of sustain it. But maybe a question would be, who to target, because especially in our industry, when it's new technology, it's a new industry in the local market. So going to someone and asking for debt, then immediately that interest risk goes up because they don't understand it. So who maybe is the best people to then approach or industry to approach when it comes to a high risk industry?
Who are the people to approach?
Yeah.
Who are the people
to approach? Yeah, I'm very active in the West African market. I will say the asset managers, are the guys that can take a certain level of risk. But what we are seeing now is that some of the banks as well are beginning to set up venture debt desk. We just made an introduction to a financial management software. We made an introduction to a bank. So I think the last few years, even though it's winter time, but I think the benefits of sort of like I want to say like a hype cycle for VC has kind of attracted a lot of asset managers and even banks looking to provide debt. The banks they tend to be a bit more. The process tends to take a bit longer, but they tend to provide better rates.
And you mentioned it's an asset-heavy business. We've seen in Egypt at least, and we're a very conservative banking system, a very traditional banking system, but we've seen that there is more and more appetite, and in fact, they've started deploying, can I say names? HSBC, for the most part, has been spearheading this quasi-venture debt because it's not really venture debt. They're financing working capital for these asset-heavy businesses. But yet they're still not able to digest the idea of lending to the lenders. But when it comes to businesses that are sort of, like you said, enabling certain verticals or the value chain, they're starting to have more and more of an appetite. So I would say, first of all, speak to your equity investors and really push hard on getting them to support you and identifying who the key people to speak to are. But we're seeing more and more commercial banks starting to have that appetite and getting a little bit of that FOMO in venture deals.
Cool. I think we should continue with some Q&A. Are there any questions out there?
More questions do we have on the floor? I know we had mentioned somebody who had started building at this, who got the debt, right? And then we were asking those who were thinking, why not getting into it? So perhaps we could ask some of those.
100%. Or even the ones who put their hands up considering venture debt.
There
I'd
we
also
go.
like to know why you didn't go ahead with it. Like, that's quite
Anybody
interesting.
got a question on that? Or share your thoughts on why I didn't go that route?
I know it's almost 4 o'clock, and I know our cogwheels aren't really turning as fast as they
We
used to.
should be sitting outside now having a drink.
No, I agree. I agree. Drown ourselves in a different kind of debt that our bodies will feel the next day. But awesome. So I'm assuming that there's no questions. I mean, these are 3 very incredible minds who could really help you figure out, that little turmoil which you might not have again. So, going once, going twice, there's no pressure.
I think we should also touch base on, and maybe since you guys have done debt, venture debt specifically, I think we should touch base on local currency debt versus USD debt. And given, we're all coming from emerging markets with very volatile, fluctuating exchange rates and having sort of that exposure to your business and the hedging costs. So I think maybe let's share some experiences of local currency debt versus USD and where maybe the availability of USD can be more appealing, but what that exactly means for the business later on.
Sure. Do you want to take this? I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I think in general, I always advise our founders to match, their debt, the currency of their debt with their revenue, right? So if you're earning Naira, don't take on USD debt. Right. We've seen a lot of, very unfortunate scenarios, where, folks, the devaluation happened. And again, I'm talking about Nigeria, where devaluation happened and, they just couldn't keep up. But I'll definitely advise, founders to find someone that is an expert to advise them, because sometimes, this dynamic doesn't necessarily apply, particularly if you are looking for very short tenor debt, right? Wherever you are sort of like on the sort of, depending on how sort of like the yield curve is, sometimes hard currency debt may be cheaper actually, right? And I think in Nigeria, this is probably one of those periods where hard currency debt may be slightly cheaper because, you are looking at sort of getting a debt at maybe about 12, venture debt about maybe 12%, but local currency is probably going to be about 24%. So if you're doing sort of like a year, if you're sort of looking at a year tenor, there's just so much uncertainty in the movements of the Naira and the USD that you may not want to take that risk, So I think there's sometimes, hard currency may be better, So I don't want to be too general. But I think, the rule is to sort of match your revenue, match the currency of your revenue with the currency of your debt. Yeah.
I think the only thing that can be said about which one is cheaper between local currency is that you don't know, right? Or you only know when you've repaid back your foreign currency loan, because at the end of the day, the missing variable is the exchange rate at the time of repayment, right? So if it's a bullet repayment, it's huge risk. If it's an amortizing debt, then you average out because then the currency will fluctuate. If you're in a country like many countries in Africa where you have structurally weak economies, that should translate into structurally weak currencies, so you know that your currency will depreciate and your foreign currency loan will be more and more expensive. So unless you have a very strong view, if you have the choice, unless you have a very strong view on the movement of currency going forward, in which case you might want to be a currency trader rather than an entrepreneur. You should go for local currency as much as you possibly can. But sometimes you don't have a choice because, in many startups, you have development finance institutions that offer USD-denominated loan. And usually for early-stage companies, that's their mission to do that. It is not necessarily the mission of the local banks to lend in local currency at attractive rates. So I've seen many startups that are taking foreign currency loans just because they don't have a choice.
Testing 1, 2, better. So I just want to say thank you for all of the contributions. We've covered a very large array of various type of debt models that we could look at. Currency exchanges, obviously, if you're looking at raising from a hard currency. We've also taken a look at other type of models and also other circumstances where you can actually think about raising equity versus debt and in what stage you'd be raising. I would love to thank all the panelists, Rana, Mobilaji, and then also obviously Jean Odier. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge with all of us on stage. And now, as you expressed earlier, could we give them a round of applause just to close it off? I think this is the moment. Do you think they deserved it? That's when you should go louder. Yeah, that's the one. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Debt versus equity, new models to explore during winter times, because winter is coming. Indeed, it is. Nathaniel, I guess you could probably stay on stage this time, couldn't you? Since we're having our awards and everything. All right. Christoph, come and join me on stage, please. It is that time of the afternoon where we get to put you on the spotlight for a couple of minutes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic couple of days at the AfricArena, the African Tech Ecosystem Accelerator Summit. So I'm sure those of you who have been joining AfricArena even before these 2 days started would have been having some fun from the boot camps that were taking place and so much more that was happening. And over the last 2 days, we've been having some real conversations that many of our startups and investors could take home and have some conversations back where they're from, and I guess start thinking differently about how we can make an impact on the African continent. And then, of course, the game is to go from Africa and beyond. Just yesterday I was teasing, we all say Africa is alive with possibilities. Yes, the possibilities are there, but all these things are dreams unless we actually do things about it and we get active about it. And if there's a team that has been trying to do that is AfricArena. Christoph and Nathaniel are going to come back a little bit later on in the next couple of minutes because we do have some awards that need to be handed out for this afternoon. So thank you to each and every single one of you who have joined us. Stay with us because we do have to hand out some of those awards. Our startups did so well during the pitching sessions, and I'm sure it was nerve-wracking sharing with everybody what it is that they're trying to do. But of course, there can only be winners. And then, of course, some of those we celebrate their successes as well. So we'll give it a few minutes. Thank you so much, DJ, and we'll be back with our awards ceremony. All right, let's get on to it. I think we've waited long enough to see who's going to receive the awards for this afternoon. Stair from AWS, if you can join us, please. Being such a great sponsor, such a great support for AfricArena. Christoph, if you can also join us on stage. Nathaniel, if you can also join us on stage, has just stepped off a moment. And of course, we'll see if Stair is going to be joining us this afternoon to hand out the awards for today.
Okay, 5 o'clock, almost. The end of the Investors Week in Cape Town. How do you feel? Tired. Do you feel tired? Do you feel tired or energized? Energized. I don't feel the energy. Can I hear some energy here? Okay, that's better. So, I think we've deserved before a lot of drinks and some celebrations to hear how we celebrate the founders that have been pitching for the last 2 days. They are the stars of the show. So we are going to hand over 7 awards to 7 amazing startups from all over the continent. I hope you're going to cheer them up. And we're also going to hand over an award for the most active ecosystem support organizations that has been awarded by a jury of founders and investors. And finally, you're going to have the awards of the most attractive investor. That doesn't mean necessarily sexy. It means attractive for startup to receive investment from them. That is the award we're gonna hand over now. So. Stay or Henry from AWS, if you can join me on stage. I can't see, I have the light in my face. Stay. I'd like to once again thank you and the AWS team for the amazing support you provide to the entire ecosystem, to AfricArena since 2018. I think you've been one of our most prominent sponsor and partner. And it's not just the financial support to AfricArena, it's also your support through everything we do and the support you provide to the startups. So the startups that are going to get awarded, the 7 startups, as well as all the startups that pitch are going to get some AWS credits. So I'm happy to say that we're going to be awarding no less than $300,000 of AWS credit. And this year, together with AWS, we will have awarded $1.8 million of AWS credit. So, Stay, a few words from you in terms of how did you, I think it's your first AfricArena Grand Summit. How do you feel?
It is indeed. Can you hear me? Oh, I'm super excited to be here. It's been an amazing 2 days. I'm super overwhelmed. Just to watch the guys pitch. I mean, when I look at the clock, I was getting so nervous for them. But the amount of work they've put through, I think this is worth it. And just for Africa to convene in Cape Town for this, for us to be involved for so long and continuing to be involved, it's been such an amazing honor. We are super excited. And my closing phrase is, Africa, your time is now.
So, Africa is now. We're now going to proceed with the award ceremony. So, the first award we're going to deliver is for the Sustainable Construction Open Innovation Challenge in partnership with Saint-Gobain. And the winner is
Lola Green.
Lola Green, come on stage.
And it's a woman!
Congratulations, Lola Green. Your time to shine.
Congrats, well done. So well done, Lola Green. You want to say a few words?
Well, I don't have many words. I'll just like to say
Thank you to AfricArena. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Cape Town. That's all.
I hope you'll be back
Super
very
proud of
soon.
you.
So you're going to get the opportunity to work with the Nova Venture team, which is the venture corporate VC of Saint-Gobain. You're going to have a meeting with them probably next week and see where it takes you. Okay, so hopefully some investment from them or some collaboration. Thank you very much.
Congrats. Awesome.
All right. And we got a press release coming out tonight with all our winners, so you're going to be amplified on social media and on our media partner network. The second award is one of the most special awards we're giving today. I'd like to call on stage Nick, who is the managing partner of Savant Capital, who has been our trusted partner for this campaign. Together with Savant, we'll be looking for the best deep tech startup across the continent. Since the Johannesburg Summit to Dakar, we enjoyed ourselves in Dakar, right? To Tunis, Nairobi, and finally Cape Town. So Nick, a few words about Savant Capital, the incredible work you guys are doing.
Well, it's not about us, it's about the companies. We've got a number of businesses that presented today, and it was great. The quality of the pitches and the companies that presented were fantastic. It's quite, it's get to the point where you got to give just one of them, that final award. It's a bit, I feel quite heartbroken.
And it's
we can't give it.
Hard to choose, right? I know the feeling, right?
Yeah,
It's been quite a debate.
Yeah.
These companies were amazing. So what is going to happen to the winner, Nick?
The winner gets a $10,000 prize awarded.
Yes!
Yeah. So
Cash!
Makes it even harder.
Cash is king. So not only 25,000 AWS credit, but also a $10,000 bounty cash prize. Plus, I'm sure, opportunity to get potential investment from Savant and to work with them. So Nick, who is the winner?
The winner of the Deep Tech Award is Amnova.
Amnova, startup from Johannesburg. Well done.
Thank you.
You want to say it?
Yeah, I don't mind saying something.
You got 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay, let's go. So I was born in a little place. No, I'm joking. I just want to emphasize how much I love the team and how we can't do this without a team. So everyone here is standing on the shoulders of giants and their team members. So thank you so much to the team. And I think we, as tech founders, as sustainability founders, all of that, our main purpose should be, outside of just products, just putting more love into the world. So please, whatever you do with your business, just put more love into the world. And let's make Africa a continent that we're proud to be a part of. And I always say this, but let's build the Wakanda that we deserve. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate the award. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Stay has disappeared.
She'll come back for
You're supposed to be on the picture, Stay. Don't go away. You're doing all of them. And so the next award is for our seed track. And we can call a representative from FMO, if there's still one alive after Super Return, AfricArena, VCN Conference, ICIS. FMO. Oh, Sean is here. So we've been working with FMO for 2 years now. They've been fantastic in terms of providing support to not only the Grand Summit and the program we do on the open innovation side with startups to find great startups on the seed stage level, but also supporting the VC Conference you attended this weekend. So maybe a few words about your experience over the last few days and how excited you are about this award, Best Seed Startup.
Well, firstly, thanks to the AfricArena team for putting together such an amazing weekend, the Young Conference, the Grand Summit. I know all the hard work you guys have put in. Also, thanks to everybody who's attended and contributed, by asking questions, the interactions, the learnings I've seen in the meeting rooms has been amazing. And it's exciting from an FMO Ventures perspective to see supporting an organization like yours and then building the ecosystem. So thanks to everyone again.
So you're going to announce the winner? The winner is...
A-Traders.
A-Traders! Yeah. Oh, take your time, buddy. Take your time. Now's your time. Congratulations.
Well done, man. Congratulations.
Great.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Hello,
thank you. Thank you so much. So I want to say really big thank you to AfricArena. AfricArena has been part of our journey for some time and forevermore as well. And to the entrepreneurs, this was a really competitive track, really amazing startups out there. We're doing this to move mountains, guys. Just keep moving those mountains, right? There's going to be times when it gets really tough, and just remember why you started this journey and really remember what's ahead of you and keep on going. Cheers, guys.
I'm going to head off.
Can I hold this one?
Okay. So next one is a very prestigious one because some of our previous winners are companies the likes of Ozo that became Series B and near unicorn. So we'd like to call now on the Best FinTech Award. That was a hell of a competitive track, right? So the winner of that is... Julia from Ivory Coast.
You are sitting like a winner.
Thank you.
Well done. Matthias, a few words?
Well, thank you very much.
You never come without taking a prize, huh?
Thank you very much, AfricArena. I don't know how you do it to organize all the events at the same time. I'm really proud to be awarded this award. And I wanted also to say congratulations to the other competitors or participants or fellow companies that were also in the fintech track. I'm based in Ivory Coast. And it's a very hard time for startups all around the continent. For funds, they are trying to raise, the VC funds are trying to raise, the startups are trying to raise, everyone's trying to raise, it's really hard. But we have a program in Ivory Coast that says the early rain of the morning rains on everybody. So it's hard for everybody, and I say, well, this prize is for all the startups, basically.
Thank you, Matthias. Very kind words.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Well done. I think you
job,
need to
good
do it
job.
there, and then it's just there. So it's like a dance, this picture ceremony. Thank you, Matthias. So, our next track is also a super hyper competitive track. This year we run an Open Innovation Challenge program in partnership with Catalyst Fund. Unfortunately, I don't think Maxime or Maëlys are in the room. If they are, they're welcome to come on stage, but they partnered with us. We run an amazing program and event in Nairobi. For those who were there, the Climate Tech Festival was an epic event, one of our most attended of the year with more than 500 people. And so very competitive track. And the winner of the Climate Tech Challenge is...
Myonga Fresh.
Myonga Fresh. Yeah. Congratulations. Congratulations.
There you go.
A few words?
Just come here. This side. I wasn't expecting to make it here, so I am grateful for the opportunity. And my word to all entrepreneurs, the last year has been the toughest for the business. If you were here during the pitch, we almost gave up, but we are still here. So I will tell all the founders, just continue steadfastly, consistently. We are solving challenges that are real problems in Africa, and we have to make sure that we do it sustainably and profitably for the businesses to continue. There are many women, many youth who are looking out to us to make sure that we don't give up, so don't give up. I'm glad I didn't give up. Thank you.
It's all about resilience. Entrepreneurship is a lonely way, but we're in all together.
It's not here. Oh.
I think we need to organize a separate photo shoot next time. All right, all right. So we're continuing, and now it's our final startup award for the day. A very special award. It goes to, well, actually we still have 2 awards. Sorry about that. The next award is very special, but it's because it's one that we've done in partnership with AWS. We looked at the numbers of last year and we were not impressed. Last year, only 3% of the 5 billion invested on the continent went to female-led startups. That's quite low. So alongside AWS Startup, we decided to launch a specific program to identify and showcase the most talented and promising female-led startups. And so we ran this program across all our summits. You saw some of the very best that were here today. And the winner of this award today is
WeCOI.
WeCOI. And that was a very competitive track. Those ladies were all winners. So congratulations, well done since winning in Johannesburg.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, let's come. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, guys. I never imagined that I'll ever stand on the stage like this. It's been a really tough year. But thank you.
Well, I think you're going to have a lot of opportunities to work with AWS Startup to going forward, have more opportunities. I think the team is very excited to be working with you, and they're already, I know, preparing some very nice surprises for you. So it's all good news. No need to cry.
Yay, thank you. You deserve this. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, fine.
I'm starting to get this. Well done.
I'm not sure about this song.
So now the next award goes to the AgriTech for the AgriTech Challenge, which was also a great deal flow. So the winner of the AgriTech Challenge is
Momi.
Momi.
Are they here?
So I think Momi is already in
Momi
the
here?
air, and we have a representation from GIZ, right? So I'd like to call, I don't know if there's still someone from GIZ. Fares, are you still here? No, I think you are also on the plane. So we've done this program with GIZ and it was quite an amazing program. I'd like to thank you for that. You want to say a few words?
Yes, I want to thank AfricArena for what you're able to establish in the last few days, and I'm very honored to hold the award for Mumi, one of the startups in our cohort and investment readiness program. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Hope to many more. I hope to many more.
Yeah, to next year.
One more.
Thank you.
Okay, picture. Okay, we're back.
All right. Now, the final startup award goes to a special award we have, which is called the Most Promising Entrepreneur Award, which singles out young and high potential entrepreneur that pitch in any of the tracks that we've mentioned. And the winner comes from the other side of Africa, and it is
Deaf Square.
Deaf Square, Noor. Yeah. I think she's the applaudimeter winner for sure.
Maybe we should swap. Here we go.
Wow. So this is my 2 times in a row most promising entrepreneur. I guess that says a lot about me. So.
now you're winning the grand.
Yeah, and I'm winning the grand one.
Yeah,
wow.
the grand one.
So I just want to say a few words. I mean, I'm only 21 years old, but just take this life advice from me. Be alive, be kind, be happy. Just put yourself out there. You never know what you're gonna meet, who you're gonna meet, or what you're gonna do. And I mean, the reason why I'm here on stage is because I almost failed my senior year of high school, and here I am now. So a loss for a gain, and yeah, just enjoy life and do the most of it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Noor. And I wish you a lot of success with your business. I hope we see you again very soon in Tunisia. So, stay, we have 2 more awards to give. They go to the most active ecosystem support organization and most attractive investor or most sexy investor. Would you like to do that with us? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so most active ecosystem support organization goes to entities, whether incubators, accelerators, or entities that are supporting the ecosystem for the work they're doing in enabling the early stage community. And the winner is the Technology Innovation Agency of South Africa. I don't know if there's anyone left from TIA. But, these guys, they invest in tech, in deep tech. They are the only organization in Africa that handles checks to fund product development at early stage. And they are working with universities, they are working with ecosystem players, they're working with incubators, accelerators, they're investing. Not a lot of money, huh? I think you should raise the money. But
after this,
amazing work you're doing. So, a few words?
Thank you very much. We are only doing what we do to support the work that you do to enable innovators. And it's heartwarming to be recognized for the efforts that we do. And once again, congratulations on this wonderful event.
Wow.
Awesome.
Partly thanks to you. Please put it in Patrick's office. Okay.
One more.
That's it, guys. We're almost at the end of this. Now, to the most attractive investors awarded by the startups, a jury of startups, and that was a competitive track with 5 investors that were battling it out. It was hard for them to make a decision, but the winner of this is
Tamim El Zain from Seed Stars.
Tamim, Seed Stars, who I think is going to announce some big news in the next few weeks, hopefully. Tamim, well done, congrats.
There you go, well done.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I think you're going to make it to the cover of GQ, I heard.
I love your jacket.
Thanks. I love your beard.
No, thank you all. I think it's. I'm not sure why there's an award for investors, to be honest, but I'm very flattered to get it. You said it's attractive. I hope it's not just the jacket. We do what we do to support innovators on the continent, and we only exist because so many of you guys are doing an amazing job. So I hope we can continue doing that for many decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamim.
We're back, we're back.
All right, so just a few words in conclusion. This was a lot of work to put together. Again, thank you to all our partners. I named them all at the beginning of this show, but most importantly, it's the community around us that enabled this event. So I think you've been awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. Do you want us to do that next year? In Cape Town? Yeah. In December? I'd like to thank Super Return Africa for partnering with us. I've heard from the investors, the ESOs, and the founders that this combination of events, having the LPs and the GPs and all the founders and ESOs in town was a powerful element, so I think we're going to go for this again. I'd like to thank the team, starting with the volunteers at the back. I think they're all here now. Thank you guys for giving your time, energy, and welcoming everybody in South African style. This was really awesome. Thank you to the technical team. So we are, how many times the streaming dropped? Sorry? No, they've been great. So thank you, Patrick and the team. I know it's been very hard to put up that stage. And I think they had to do it 5 times over on Monday night. They really struggled. So thank you and the team for making it working out on time or almost on time. And to the entire set of contractors. I mean, CTICC is a big operation. It was new for us to do it here, so we're learning. Sorry for all the little snags, but we're going to always do better next time. I'd like to thank the team of AfricArena. So Nathaniel, our program manager, putting together an incredible content. Come on stage, Nate. Lincoln, our Kenyan scout for startups. Lincoln, come on stage. Kosi, our investor relations, she's just started a few days ago in the team. If she's still around, if you can come on stage. Dan, our project manager. Sorry? Jabulile, who is our communication lead. I think she's busy writing press release. Okay, yes she is. Thank you, Stay. Yeah, here's Kosi. Jabulile. I don't know, Kim, if you're here. Don't know, I can't see with the light. The smile of AfricArena. Then a very special man who's been basically running the boot camps across the circuit all over the continent, and he's always smiling. There's never a problem. He creates special treasure hunts for us. We're looking for his keys at the middle of the night in front Shuk for an hour, and then it's in his pocket. No, thank you, Thomas. He's been awesome with all the startups. And to all our partners that have been supporting us. So I'd like to ask for a final picture before we take the road. So if all the winners could come on stage with their awards so we can do a final picture, that would be great. You guys can be here. Our sponsors, you can come back on stage. Henry, Nick, Stay, whoever is left in the building. Sponsoring AfricArena. FMO, I think, is checked out. So yeah, sit in the front with your awards, guys.
Hey, are we in the back? We're in the back.
So now I'd like to call all the startups that were pitching with us that are still here. If you can come on stage so we can take a group pictures of all the founders. Come on stage, guys, because you're all winners. Let's applaud all the startups that were pitching for the last 2 days. They are the heart of our community, and they are all winners in this. You need to just, otherwise you need to go at the back. The tallest guys at the back. Yeah. Okay. So, are we ready? 3, 2, 1. AfricArena! Yay! This was awesome. It was great to have everyone. We hope you enjoyed the last 2 days and to see you very soon at one of our AfricArena summits across the continent, in New York, in Paris, in Berlin, in London, etc., etc.
Thanks, my dear.
For those who still have energy, for the startups and investors, we are having a drinks at Utopia's rooftop, and you are all welcome. So you can flow directly into that. It's a few minutes away. Utopia rooftop.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.